Welcome to the Virtual Cheese Awards 2023, showcasing the very best of British cheese. My name is Cara Bowen and I am the moderator for this afternoon's session. Today we are judging the F2 class, which is the best artisan hard cheese made from own herd. I am delighted to have with me two total characters who've made me laugh all morning. I'm just going to let them introduce themselves to you guys now.
My name is Bronwyn Percival, and I'm the Technical Director of Neal's Yard Dairy and the Chair of the Technical Committee for the Specialist Cheesemakers Association. And I'm delighted to be here for Best Own Herd Cheese. This is really a privilege.
Hi, I'm Perry from Rennet and Rind. I am Britain's first Afternoon of the Year, and I'm the Chief of Cheese and Director here at Rennet and Rind. And I love the Virtual Cheese Awards because we get to have a complete, transparent judging, us here with you guys for 6 minutes on just one cheese. So looking forward to this category.
And we love having you guys with us too. Okie dokie, we're going to dive straight into the first one. The first entry number is F21138.
118. Here we are.
My team pre-unwrapped it.
So Perry, if you wouldn't mind holding it up to your camera so we can show everybody. There's the rind and then the paste inside.
Yeah, so we're looking at maybe goat, sheep kind of colour, really nice. Good rind on the outside. We've got some interesting mould action, which is already interesting for me. Really nice stark contrast. Yeah, looks like a good cheese.
Yeah, so we're going to taste and then we're going to jump in and do all of our scores simultaneously.
Yeah.
So I love the visual kind of appearance of it. I love just seeing just an alive rind with that's had some age on it. There's a small like splattering across the face of the cheese, which potentially could be crystals. It's intriguing. I really like the way it looks. I'm around about 7.5 or an 8.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's very even. Yeah, lovely, big format, probably quite an attractive and striking cheese when it's cut on a counter. Yeah, let's go with 8.
Yeah. In terms of texture, I like the way it breaks down. It's got some rigidity to it in terms of the pliancy that's there, like a cooked milk kind of mountain-esque kind of like style that's in there. It's nice on the palate, nothing too crazy going on. I'm kind of in the 7 kind of sector.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's proper for the style of cheese it is. It feels fully broken down, a little bit digested, but not sticky or wet. So yeah, let's go with that. And in terms of the aroma, I think it's quite an inviting kind of, it's a little bit on the rind. It's a little bit fishy smelling. You get that?
Yeah.
And so
I think packaging.
Back to the packaging.
Yeah, I feel like if you've got an active rind, that's got things going on, and then you pack it pretty hard. I didn't unpack mine; someone did, so I didn't know. You're going to create some kind of gassy, incorrect, smells. So yeah, on the rind, not appealing at all. But trying to take that away and smell just the interior. You've got. Yeah, nice floral go kind of area, a little bit nutty, but unfortunately that kind of fishy element that you're talking about is there.
Kind of there covering it up. I would say 5.5.
Yep.
Aroma. And then flavor wise, I think it has a lovely kind of round, slight sweetness. It's not too goaty. It's quite dairy. The one thing that's holding me back on it is quite a histamine tingle. It's really getting the back of my throat, and that feels to me like it's taking away from the like experience of eating the cheese and getting me a little bit irritated in my throat.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. It feels like it shouldn't be there, and it doesn't add anything to the cheese. and you've got all those nice flavors that are there, and that subtle kind of almond nut that's in there, and then you get that histamine, and it's hard to get over that, and you forget everything that was good about, like really good about it.
Yeah, I'm left just kind of itching my throat. So I mean, I think unfortunately on the flavor, I'm probably gonna have to go about 5.5.
Okay, yeah, I agree, 5.5, yeah.
But like impressive in many ways, just held back by a couple of key faults.
I think there'll be some like amazing batches of that cheese.
Yeah.
I think they're you know, it's got huge amounts of potential, and yeah, really good.
Doubtless, yeah, no, completely.
Okay, so just to recap for you, we've got appearance 8, aroma 5.5, texture 7, and flavor 5.5.
Yep.
Fantastic. We'll move on to the next one, which is F21137.
1.
Is that the one that we don't have? I haven't got a dash next to that one. That's the one that I do not have, I think.
Okay. F21084.
Yeah. First test. Can I get it open?
Yeah, so really nice and even, good color that's on it. Not too much rind establishment there, but I think obviously that's intentional that's happening. A nice kind of slightly uneven gradient on the way in, which would concern me about the differential in flavor between going towards the rind and out of the rind, I suppose.
It's interesting. The rind looks quite even. It is plastic coated, which I was wondering just when I was looking at it.
Oh,
with
yes,
lack of mold growth. But yeah, quite. Let's have a taste.
Yeah. And it's got this kind of like feathered, flinty kind of texture to it, which isn't quite feathered, but which is quite appealing. So, really pleasant.
Yeah, I agree. It's like, it's very difficult to pick anything out that's wrong about this. It's very even. Appearance, flavor, the whole thing is like ticking loads and loads of boxes. I think that pleasantness is maybe its greatest attraction, and also the thing that feels like it's holding it back for me. This is made with your own herd's milk, but yet it doesn't feel like it's really doing anything that's particularly unique or different. So I think it's very good, but I don't think it's great, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think it's very like Moorish, because it's just so inoffensive, but it doesn't challenge enough. It's like kind of in that kind of Lancashire kind of area. And I just think that it kind of just needs a little bit more of the character that's in there. So I'm on, so texture I find really pleasant, actually. I think texture is around about 7. I don't think you could kind of, and in terms of the flavor, sorry, I know I'm jumping about, Cara. In terms of flavor, I'm around about 6.
Yeah, 6, 5.5. I mean, I just think it's nice, but it's not bad, but it's not exciting.
I think you would struggle to have people who would go like, and this may seem slightly offensive, go, that is my favorite cheese. Yeah. You know, I think if it's a good companion on the cheese board, and it would action as a support mechanism for like fresh flavor, you know, easygoing simplicity at the start. But in terms of, you know, getting crowd pleasers in, it's not there. Yeah.
So yeah, I might go with like a 5.5 on the 5.5 on the flavor. Appearance, the only thing I'd knock it for is the plastic coat. Do you really need that? This cheese, if it's well cared for in the store, like get a natural rind on there, and you know, it feels a little bit like, you know, it feels like, I don't think
it's so true.
Yeah.
You're spot on about that. I don't think there'd be anything that would be inoffensive about a rind that would happen in there, and I don't think it would affect your kind of your maturation or how this cheese, the outcome. I think it would only be positive.
You might have to care for a little more in the store.
Yes, yeah.
But other than that, so I think from an appearance point of view, it's like maybe a six and a half. Yeah. And then finally, what did
we do an aroma? Did we do aroma?
Not yet.
No.
It's a little bit piquant in a way that isn't super.
I think it falls into that element of how it tastes.
Yeah.
I think it's very just pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's like 5.5 that is kind of in that area where it's inoffensive, but lacks that kind of that next step with your own milk, you know? Yeah.
So what are we missing, if anything? Texture?
We are not missing anything. I'll just recap for you. We have appearance 6.5, aroma 5.5, texture 7, and flavor 5.5.
I think that's fine. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay, next cheese, my guys, are 1058.
1058. That's a bit more rustic.
It is indeed. So like a Tom style, this knife kind of like velvety rind, a Caerphilly kind of element that's in there, which is pretty cool. Let me hold it up a little bit closer. You've got that kind of velvety on there, that like sort of suede, nice feel, good kind of typical thick rind that's on there, that's got a bit of character, kind of eyelets that are kind of opening in there, which is very kind of true for this style of cheese. Maybe a degree too dry.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because it looks from the shape of the rind like it started out with quite a lot of moisture, but it's definitely really solid and firm now in a way that, you know, for something where the rind has shrunk in like that, you got that pie crust thing going on and all these wrinkles and a lot of very thick rind, it's surprisingly kind of like dense.
I also have this weird coloring that's kind of happening there.
Yeah,
which, like a pinkish, which seems like it's been exposed to it maybe in its journey, some moisture, and that exterior has leaked into the cheese somehow, I think. I don't think that's happened throughout the process. It smells really nice, like it's typical to Caerphilly, like grassy, lactic area.
I think appearance-wise, I agree with you. I'd probably knock it slightly for the mottling and the discoloration within the rind, but overall, that kind of rusticity kind of reclaims it for me a bit. I would probably go 7.5.
Yeah, I agree with that.
For appearance.
Yeah.
Aromatically, I mean, the rind is very, very ammoniated, but you know, there's a lot of activity going on there.
Yeah, ammonia, mushrooms underneath, typical with these styles, but the ammonia is up there. 5.
Yeah.
Texture, I have some problems with. The dryness is causing some issues for me. It's becoming quite plastic.
I agree. I feel like I'm thinking of this as a Caerphilly, but then like part of my brain when I'm tasting it says that's not a Caerphilly because it has a very it's not demineralized. It doesn't have that fluffy acidic core. It's almost like it's more like a tome.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about it as a tome, all I would say is it just feels it's a little dense, a little bit heavy, a little hard work. If it's a Caerphilly, then I would say there's something about it that's not quite true to type in terms of it hasn't captured that demineralized.
Or it's both.
Or it's both. Yeah, no, I mean, maybe we shouldn't be fussed with it.
But if it's both or whatever it is, I don't think that texture really comes through for it. And, you know, I think it's on the side of not okay. I think I'm around about 4 on the texture. In terms of the flavor, it depends where I try the cheese. You know, going towards the rind, I'm getting that kind of, that ammonia is now kicking in for me. But in the center, it's a little bit more typical lactic, grassy, and very actually quite pleasant. But nothing groundbreaking. So I would be sitting around about sort of a 5-ish, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's some interesting fruitiness, but it's not reaching out and grabbing me. So yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, so recapping for you. Appearance 7.5, aroma 5, texture 4, and flavor 5.
Okie dokie.
What's our next?
Next one, F21060. Can you bring yours up towards the camera a little bit?
So you can see it's kind of, it looks like it was made in a Gouda mold, plastic coated, probably, you know, it's kind of settled. I wonder if it could have been turned slightly more in the molds to get a more even shape. It's not a biggie. Quite aged, a few crystals in there. See that?
Yeah. Yeah, lovely looking cheese, to be honest. You kind of, it's one of those visual ones that you know what you're going to get. Obviously, the plastic coat around the outside is desperately needed because that moisture in there is obviously quite devoid, which is kind of like intentional. The covering of crystals is very even, which is pretty remarkable. Yeah, I like the look of it. If I was going to say anything bad about it, it feels too pale.
Yeah.
Yeah, like on my screen it actually looks quite dark, but actually visually it's quite that's the only downside I have to it on kind of appearance.
Why is that a downside, Perry?
Just pure, well, to be fair, I'm jumping a few steps because I'm looking at it, I'm looking at the age, I'm looking at the crystals that are in there. I think it's going to be, you know, I may be wrong, and obviously that's why I haven't scored it. I may need to jump back, but it feels like it's going to be a really rich, impactful cheese. And I feel like the coloration doesn't indicate that as well as I thought. What do you think, Bronwyn? That might be too harsh?
No, I think you picked up on something. I think when you taste it, you might recognize that the coloration is indicative of a higher acid cheese than what I was expecting. So, you know, sometimes higher acid cheeses can have that paler color, even if they're made with quite, you know, rich and grass-fed milk or whatever. But for me, I was kind of surprised by the fact that this cheese, it feels like it's quite aged. It has some really big chunky crystals in there. And yet the final impression that it leaves on my tongue is something that's a little bit leaning towards the acid or the tart, which I just thought was a little bit incongruous with what I was expecting from this style. It's not bad, but I feel like in some ways it's not delivering the kind of caramel punch that I'm looking for from a crystal and Gouda style.
It's so interesting because you can feel that smokiness, that kind of element fighting through when that kind of the freshness that it has and that tang, that tartness that you're saying is overriding, and I don't know how to put it, but it feels disappointing.
Yeah. And, you know, it's funny, I think particularly with this style of cheese, once you've swallowed it and you wait for a minute, it will tell you a lot. And for me, this is just leaving a metallic taste covering my tongue that sometimes I get from aged Goudas, where there's just like, it's like a bitter metallic tongue coating kind of sensation that I'm not super keen on. So, you know, I think in many ways it looks like it's made quite nicely, but I think the overall sensation of a cheese that's not quite comfortable in its own skin.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's quite a you know, refined cheese, but this isn't the best example from it. It feels like some kind of acceleration may have happened, and that hasn't translated kind of like all through the cheese. And I think if you had that texture on the outside more throughout the cheese, maybe the acidity would wane, or maybe that was I know that sounds really strong as a disappointment, but I'd mean it as a compliment. I think this cheese actually could be relatively quite amazing. And most people, I mean, is Gouda still the most sold cheese around the world?
Wouldn't be surprised, you know.
Yeah.
It feels like it set its sights high, and there could potentially be something quite exciting from that, but this isn't the cheese that's delivering this necessarily. So from an appearance point of view, I think it's pretty nice, maybe like a 7.5.
Yeah, definitely.
Aroma, yeah, kind of milky and slightly sweet smelling. nice, like not particularly distinguished, but maybe like a 6.5.
6.5. I think it's delivering on that promise that we thought we were going to get with more caramel sweetness.
Setting a high bar. And then texture, I feel like the crystals are a little too much for me. They're just a little distracting. They feel big and chunky, and I love a bit of crystal action, but for me that was a bit too much.
I think it's with the texture. I think in this specific style, like this specific cheese, I'm sure there's other ones that they make, you know, that are different, but it just that kind of freshness and that kind of high moisture that you're getting in the middle doesn't align itself well with that crystalline feature.
That's maybe part of the root of the incongruousness. So I mean, from a textural point of view, I might say like 5.5.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then flavor, I'm just gonna, I think I would probably go 5.5 to 6.
I'd go for 6, because I think there's a degree of weight that I'm applying to this, kind of what I was expecting to where it is, where I think actually a lot of people would still really enjoy this cheese. It's just the promise of what could be. A
victim of our expectations being super high, but I think that's fair.
Okay, guys, can I recap for you? Appearance, you've given it a 7.5, aroma 6.5, texture 5.5, and
oh no, you froze.
Oh, no.
We're on our own, Perry.
That's it. We're on our own. Cara has. Oh no, you're back. Oh yeah.
Come back. So was that right, guys? Sorry.
Yeah. So you got up to the last one, I think, on flavor, but
6,
I think
you gave flavor.
Yes. Yeah. You were there.
Okay. Next one is F2 1048.
1048.
Cool. Yeah, really pleasant, kind of easygoing cheese. Oh, let me hold it up here. So yeah, kind of once again, kind of not too much mold action happening on there. Very thin rind, good kind of drawing in that's happening to the interior. That would depend on flavor on how that appeals, but very
even. Very smooth, very continuous, very no. Sort of.
It's a good thing, right?
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
Quite dense.
I do find these cheeses very satisfying, the way, you know, like they kind of like break off and they're just like jigsaws. They're just perfectly, there's very little crumb that goes in, very little cheese waste in terms of for eating.
Designed to behave.
I love the aroma actually.
Quite
it's very like apricot, white chocolate kind of esque.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It's funny because I don't think, looking at it, I think I would have been thinking of something quite a lot more kind of like yogurty.
Yeah, I think I would be sitting in the kind of really young, you know, Gouda kind of esque dairy, more Spanish kind of like those young cheeses.
Definitely. I find the texture a little bit floury, a little bit like bitty. I'm not sure if that's just a curdiness that hasn't broken down yet, but it's almost like squeaky and very, very dry.
It's very dry for the coloration that it has, and obviously there has been some moisture loss, but I thought we'd have more than that. But I suppose that's the clue in the break off. Texturally, that's a challenge, and it doesn't chew in the right way that I would want it to. I think I'm around about sort of. Do we score it on appearance? Sorry,
We haven't scored anything yet, my love.
No. Okay, cool. So appearance, I'm going to go for a 5. I think it's just kind of even.
Yep.
Aroma, I think it scores slightly higher. I think around about 6. I think that's quite kind of pleasant.
Like that kind of warmth around it. Yeah.
Yeah. Texturally, I've got problems with it. I'm around about 4.
Yeah, I was going to say 3 even. It's a hard eat. It's just like sawdusty, squeaky thing. Maybe it's not ripe yet. I don't know. There's something about it that doesn't feel quite finished.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm happy with 3 actually. That's fine. And then flavor, I'm kind of around 4.5, 5.
I'm gonna think 5. Like, there's nothing wrong with the flavor.
No.
It's very gentle to the point of maybe verging on a tiny bit bland. Like, there's nothing wrong with it, but you know, it's not projecting a lot of character. So yeah.
Okay, so we're going with 4, yes?
Yes. Or were we saying 5? 5 for flavor.
5. So I'll recap for you guys. We've got appearance 5, aroma 6, texture 3, and flavor 5.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Next user score is F21041.
Very good.
Here we are. Good rind covering. That it has, I like that, the kind of evenness that's in there. It's got like a glow to it almost, you know.
Very
really smooth.
Yes, got that marble-like thing in the context of a hard cheese, slightly shiny, very, very even and continuous. Hard as a rock, I might.
Yeah. Yes. You could definitely murder someone with this cheese. That's
and it's not even sharp. No.
Yeah, that's a challenge for a lot of cheesemongers. This firmness, this will snap a lot of wires. But appearance, for me, it's like it's like a 9.
No, I agree. Like, just that marble-like consistency all the way through, no holes. I like the fact that it doesn't have a really dark halo around it, because often that would mean it had really dried out, and particularly of this age at this size, I think that that's pretty impressive. I don't love the black plastic coat, to be honest. I think that it doesn't really fit with the farmhouse ethos. Maybe it's kind of like dramatic, and it's nice that there's a bit of mold growing on it, but it's like, I don't know, maybe that's just personal taste.
I agree and equally disagree, I suppose. When you're sitting in this category, which when you smell it, Conte, you know, those kind of, you know, you're gonna want to put a new spin on it, I suppose, and have a clear distinction to what you're doing.
Sure.
And I think it does it well. And I think, you know, for me, if I take away that, like, I'll let you mark down, but I think it's a 9 on appearance for me. But yeah.
I'll go with you. I think it's pretty accomplished. So yeah, let's go with 9.
Aroma, guys.
Yeah.
Not getting the amount in terms of aroma, but feel free to. I feel like it's more in the flavor. I don't know. What do you?
Yeah, it's light there. There's that roux flour kind of that you have to work for. It's not that pungent in terms of delivering that what I'm getting in terms of flavor, but I think it's like a 7 because I think it's very, in terms of texture, flavor, I think it's just a superb cheese.
There's a denseness and a sort of chewiness without being rough or curdy or shardy or sawdusty, which I really like. It feels like a cheese that's broken down. So yeah, I agree. Texture-wise, I think it's really good. Flavor-wise, it's a little more yogurty than I was expecting. I was expecting something a little bit more unabashedly sweet. It's very nice. I don't know if it has like the complex layers that I would expect from a kind of Alpage cheese in this category, but like it's a pretty impressive effort, I would say. So
I think you've picked out on that yogurt note, which I think I don't want there.
Yeah.
You know,
tiny bit kind of, not in keeping with the character. Now I know we're not doing true to type, but
no.
But nevertheless, I think texture-wise, I don't know, what would you say? 7.5, 8?
7.5, 8. So 7.5.
Beautiful. And then flavor wise, I mean, like very, very good. I would say, yeah.
Very, very good.
8? We go with
Yeah.
8?
Yeah, people will love that cheese.
It's an easy crowd pleaser, a safe bet for any cheesemonger.
A nightmare for cheesemongers to slice.
Yes.
But equally completely delicious.
Hopefully worth the effort.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. What's next?
Just say but worth the effort. Okay, F21018.
Yeah. Ooh, wow.
Yeah, for a minute I thought I had some kind of like surface mold that developed, but it was just kind of the way it was positioned. Looks really, really gnarly. Like,
is it a Parmesan, a Salaire? Is it, you know? Like,
yeah.
oh my God.
There's some remnants of cloth on the outside, which is very cool. We like to see that. Weirdly, the openings that it has are really consistent in my piece.
It's really interesting because they're like craggy yet, you know, well distributed. Yeah, no.
One of you just hold it up. So that's great. Thank you, Bronwyn.
Look at that rind. It's quite thick, but it actually is, you know, it's not going into the cheese very much. I kind of like, you could pick holes in this for being a little bit kind of crazy, but I kind of like it. It's like rugged and characterful and
a lot of character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it looks like something that just would draw eyes to people and hopefully provide a challenge and hopefully provide some kind of differential kind of flavors from what you would standardly get. I think like I'm just impressed in terms of how equal like the openings are. I like very rarely see that, you know, that I have. But yeah, I really like the look of it. And there may be a degree of personal preference in there that's
unavoidable.
Yes. Yeah.
It's fairly firm.
Yes. I haven't picked the best knife. I'm just working through the number of clean knives I have. Yeah, very kind of like gnarly inside, really, really aged. Big flavor.
Yeah, big upfront, but not like, I don't know. Given the age, given the smell, which is quite like, it projects at you. I just feel like maybe it's a little old. It feels like it's peaked and it's coming down. There's like a muddiness to it. And that's a shame because like, I like the crystallineness. I like the firmness. I think it, like, if that could deliver more on that kind of savory, sweet umami kind of spectrum, I think it would be dazzling. As it is, it just feels a little tired and a little bit muddy.
Yeah, I think, and there's a kind of, in mine, there's a like a soap element, which is kind of really detergent, kind of like washing away anything that was, you know, really, really remarkable about it. I quite like the texture, but that's kind of opposed to, like, which quite rightly you said, it feels like it's definitely been overaged. So on texture, I'm kind of sitting around about sort of like 6.5, 7, because I like it.
I think it's like that kind of curdy crystalline roughness is idiomatic. So yeah, let's go 7 on the texture. Appearance, I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah,
a bit crazy. I'd go 8 on appearance.
Yeah,
like
totally. And I mean, the aroma is really pleasant as well, like a really well-aged Gouda kind of sweet Parmesan style. Hasn't kind of got that baby stick element Parmesan has, but it's really kind of like pleasant. Like, actually, I would dive into that really quickly if I was smelling cheeses and what one I was going to rate. So I'd go for like an 8.
Yeah, 8, but then letting it down on the flavor with a sort of 6, I would say.
Yeah, I think we just have to, like, the flavor is is very poor. And although that we love what intentionally, like what its intentions is, I really worry about, and I don't know if I can say this, Code, like putting this cheese forward as a potential winner because it scored quite high in those areas, because the flavor is wrong. Yeah,
I agree. It feels like something also from a cheesemonger's perspective, something that might draw out on the counter quite quickly. Like, this is a big wheel, and just the flavor being as it is, and that just a little bit locked in, I would worry that it. Yeah, I agree with Perry. If this comes out on top in terms of the score, we need to reassess that. But I think there are elements of it that are quite good.
yes, yeah, definitely.
Good to know, and all feedback is good, guys.
Yeah,
So-
I think just I'd love to try this cheese at various stages of its life. And I think Bronwyn's quite right that, that everything that is there, the hallmarks are there. But I think if you bring it back a couple of months, maybe there's still with trace elements of that and you have a better cheese. But in terms of flavor, I would have to go, and this is going to sound really harsh, but like 3.5.
Yeah,
because it doesn't work. Yeah, it really doesn't work.
Okay, guys, can I recap for you then? Appearance, we have an 8. Aroma, we have an 8. Texture, we have a 7. And flavor, we have a 3.5 based on the aging.
I think that's fair.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. The next
Good
one we
effort
have,
with that one though. I like it.
good. F21015.
Excellent.
Thank you, Bronwyn.
Of course. So we've got another kind of Gouda style cheese, at least in terms of the mold. It's plastic coated with a slightly darker kind of yellow wax on it.
Yeah, it looks well made, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. A couple crystals in there. There we go.
Cuts well, even.
Bit of wetness hanging out in those holes. I don't think that's necessarily a big defect, but it is interesting that it's a bit drippy on the inside.
Really like that. Really like it, actually. I think the balance between the moistness of the cheese and the dryness, to me, is very masterful. It dissipates really quickly, but it's big, impactful, covers the palate, feels really, really filling because there's just a lot of rich flavors going on there.
What a buttered kind of.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bronwyn, I didn't quite hear what you said then.
A lot of kind of a buttered caramel sort of, a caramel sweet sort of feeling. I agree with you too, Perry. I think the texture is quite masterful. It's like firm, but super silky in the way it breaks down. It's not feathered or powdery. It feels substantial, but it melting. And I like that as well.
It's cool that it kind of, because it has that degree of like after, it feels really refreshing to me. Because you kind of get it on the palate and it's, it's warm, nutty, sweet, caramel, butterscotch, all the hallmarks of a typical style like this. And then it dissipates and it feels really refreshing, like a pint of water, because, and that's very different for me, for this style of cheese. And I think people would love it.
I agree. And unlike that other one that was sort of a Gouda style before, this is not leaving me with any metallic aftertaste. I'm always a little bit wary of this style of cheese because I don't know, it feels a little bit obvious, but I think this one is really ticking a load of boxes that are quite good. So yeah, appearance wise, I mean, good. Yeah. 8.
8. Yeah.
Aroma.
Texture.
So let's go to aroma next, guys.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I mean, maybe not extraordinary, but not bad in any way. I think it's about that initial hit in the mouth. So I would say like 7 on aroma. It's
I'd go for 7.5, but I'm happy to go 7. Yeah.
Which are we going on, 7 or 7.5?
What do you think? You choose.
Let's go 7. Let's go 7.
Texture, I'm going to give it really a high score. I think like 8.5, maybe. Just the smoothness and structure of it, I really like.
For me, I really want to go like 9 or 9.5. I don't think I've ever had a cheese that has given me that level of refreshing. I think that's just really, really smart.
Yeah. All right, I'm there for it. So shall we say, yeah, let's go 9.5 on texture, and then I think like a solid 9 on flavor.
Yeah,
you know,
solid 9.
The refreshingness of the final impression after all that sweetness is quite nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got huge amounts of length, which you'd expect in this profile of it. That is a great batch of cheese.
Well done.
Yeah, well done. I really, really like that. And yeah, be looking at that number to find out who that is.
Okay, guys. The next one is F21165.
Yeah.
So yeah, another cloth bound, it would appear.
Yes.
Coloring looks a bit inconsistent, but I might have to run a knife over it to make sure that's the case, not the packaging. Yeah, looks really kind of like pleasant. I don't see anything particularly inoffensive at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, quite a nice kind of rich yellow color.
Yeah.
What's the cut like, guys?
Quite firm.
Really
but even like it doesn't appear, my piece does not appear too mottled on, further inspection.
Yeah, and the aroma, I'm getting a lot of pear, cider, that kind of edge that's there, which is quite interesting for this style of cheese. I think I don't normally get it from this.
It is a bit cidery.
Mm.
Yeah. Very high toned.
Texture is really smooth as well.
I like the texture. I feel like the flavor, again, I'm getting some histamines there as well. I wonder if it's a little, does it need a bit more salt, or there's something just a bit hollow about the flavor.
It's the salt. It's very it's kind of devoid of any specific flavor, I suppose. Yeah.
So appearance wise, I would say nice. Are we thinking 7?
7, yeah.
Aroma, yeah, that kind of cidery, little bit lip.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, but I don't think it's a hallmark of I want that cheese. I think it's about 5.5 for me, the aroma.
That works for me. Yeah.
Texture, I think, is quite high. I think that's really pleasant and smooth.
Very even. And it's firm, but it doesn't feel curdy or hard or rough. So yeah, let's give that a slightly higher. I mean, maybe like a 7.5, 8.
Yeah, 7.5, 8. And then flavor, I think we're going to need to be around about 4.
Yeah.
If that,
it's unbalanced. It's not a complete whole. It's toppy with then histamines that just, let it down a little bit.
More salt, perhaps.
Yeah, possibly. That would be one place to visit. Okay.
Thank you, guys. Do you have F21173?
Yes.
Okay.
A nice kind of like pleasant, comforting cheese.
Like a little
bright, the like kind of bright colors, the unusual sort of shape, very cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All in this special.
Be really interesting when we try it, smell it. I think I do like when cheeses look how they are going to taste. And I think this will definitely be one that we'll do. So appearance, I like it. I think that's really interesting. I think, you know, around about sort of 6.5.
Yep.
Texture is curdy, kind of got those kind of granular bits in
It's
there.
also kind of curd cheese, you know, that it feels like there's no right. It feels like it's molded quite wet and probably quite post-acidified, but it's not a rough. It's not a rough texture. It's just a very fine kind of silty clay-like kind of texture, which, you know, as an eating cheese, I'm not sure I'm super into that texture. Feels more appropriate for like a lactic cheese than a semi-hard cheese. But again, you talked me out of that. It's
No,
me,
I think you're right. I think this one becomes kind of on the back of a lot of big flavors, and what we have, having this here is quite confusing for us. Yeah, after doing the blue in this one. And it's very light, delicate, comforting, easygoing, but kind of struggles to lift it, even though we're marking it on its own individual merits.
Indeed, I was about to say that.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Marking it on its individual merits. I just think it's a little bit like it feels like starters and very primary and very kind of like one note. It's clean, it's fresh, but it's not giving me much in the way of an experience.
Yeah. So appearance, I think that's the best appealing nature of it. I would be around about sort of 6.5, 7.
Let's go 7. Let's go
7. In terms of aroma, really clean, really yogurty, not much else going on for this style of cheese. The complexity is just yogurt or milk, which I put around about 6.
I might go 5.5.
Let's go 5.5. And then texture, I'm not too keen on the granular nature of it. I'll go 5. Flavor, I'm around about 5 as well.
Yeah, there's nothing bad, but it's just not memorable. And I think on a cheese board, for example, it would really suffer by comparison to what you were putting it next to. So that's great.
Guys, sorry, can I just recap that one?
Yes.
7 for appearance, 5.5 for aroma, texture 5, and flavor 5.
Yeah.
Okay. Next cheese is F21216.
1.6.
Oh, hold on a second. Just bear with me, guys.
I appear to have lost that one. I'm sure I had it
Sort of cone shape in a clear plastic backpack.
Oh, 1216.
Sorry.
Just staring right at it. I'm just cheese combering slightly.
No, I think we're reaching the satiation point.
Numbers don't mean anything, just cheese does. Yes.
All right. Go for it. Again, quite an even looking cheese, softer than I expected it to be when I'm cutting into it.
Interesting. It has an interesting note. It's kind of like sparkling water, salsa kind of refreshing area that's there.
Sometimes I say like mineral salts, and this has a little bit of a mineral saltness behind it. it's like surprisingly sweet. It feels like a very like gently sweet, milky, quite unassuming cheese. It's not one that's setting out to knock your socks off, but it's
Yeah, and it's got kind of like the sweetness is like in a ballpark of like that condensed milk, but like if you watered it down.
no, it's a really apt description. It's leaving my tongue feeling a bit astringent, a little drippy, which I wasn't expecting considering, it's quite a smooth texture, but yeah. I mean, appearance wise, I would revisit why doesn't this cheese have a natural rind? It's a farmhouse cheese. Like I think the plastic coat devalues it a little bit, and I think you might get some more interesting layers of flavor under the rind if you were allowing, microbes to grow on it rather than just sealing it in plastic coat. I might mark down slightly for that, even though the cheese itself very continuous. I like the yellow color. It says grass to me, there's a lot of goodness there. Maybe like a 6.5.
Yeah, 6.5 on appearance. I agree with it's interesting. It'd be interesting to know if that's for ease in terms of this kind of approach to sealing the cheese. But it'd be interesting to create a little bit more dryness in there to see what other elements emerge. Because that note that we're talking about, that kind of watered down condensed milk, minerality, that salsa that's there, I think could develop into something quite interesting. But I think you would have to take a look at the dryness and the humidity that's within the cheese, which would be quite interesting outside of the cheese. So the texture's around about 5 for me.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry,
it's nice and easy going.
Yeah, pleasantly light. But yeah, absolutely. It's I think for a medium, like a semi-firm cheese with a smooth texture, it's hitting the notes. It's not that's not particularly memorable. It feels a bit kind of easy. But nice, 6.
Yeah, 6. And then sorry, Cara, did we do aroma, or we haven't done aroma yet?
I
think we haven't done aroma. Sorry, did we skipped ahead?
So I've got appearance 5, nothing for aroma, texture 6, and nothing for flavor.
So I actually quite like the aroma.
Yeah, for me, that kind of butter caramel thing is back there, and it just I would maybe go 7.5 on aroma.
Yeah, 7.5 is fine. And then obviously flavor, it doesn't quite get there, so I'm around about 5.
Sounds good to me. Yeah.
Sorry, was that a 5, Perry?
Yes, a 5. Sorry.
Thank you. The next cheese, guys, is F2. Excuse me, 1212.
Yep. Okay. Another close. Go ahead. Sorry.
It looks like as a really, like, as you open that packaging, a really nice, strong kind of territorial aroma immediately, and like quite it's got a lot of distance. It's very rare for these style of cheeses, obviously just trying to assume, to actually have that kind of
like projection almost.
Projection, yeah. It's which is great. It's great to see that. Yeah.
No, I agree. There's like it's like super buttery. Quite firm. I mean, quite firm.
Yeah. That aroma is gorgeous, by the way. Yeah. I just I can't get away from it. It's so strange. I feel like this is the strongest aroma that we've had.
I think in some ways it's like one of the strongest cheeses that we've had. And I say that in a way that it's not a cheese that's setting out to be strong, but it's just like there's loads of stuff going on and loads packed into it. I like it.
Really like it.
So what more can you tell me about?
Sorry, I'm just having a little bit of a moment. A moment with that cheese.
Appearance.
Sorry, go ahead, Ron.
Appearance wise, I think it's really nice, super even. You know, I would give that like an 8 and a half. It's nice, it's very nice. Aroma, super, I agree with Perry. It's just like it fills up the room. It's like, you know, sometimes sherry, you can have a glass of sherry and like somebody opens the door and they're like, wow, somebody's drinking sherry in here. It has that level of kind of like space fillingness. So I'd put that like 9 on aroma.
Yeah, I'll put it at 9. I think that's such a compliment to this style of cheese. I think when we think about selling this style of cheese, when people, obviously there's the kind of literal definition of territorial styles and things like that, but I always think they're harder to sell for people. It's like the older crowds kind of like it, the young, they need to be exposed to it, and you need to be able to engage with people more in a counter. And having that much aroma, which is so pleasant, so kind of organoleptic in terms of, not organoleptic, what's it like, retro, kind of like nasal, memories, grass, summer. I mean, that is an absolute triumph for me. I really just think that's...
Why isn't it a 10, guys?
I don't know. I'm actually happy for it.
Let's make it an aroma 10. Let's make it an aroma 10. I absolutely agree. It's off the scale. And you know, I totally agree with you, Perry. This is the kind of cheese where I feel like I'm very... like I want to like territorials, and so often I feel like it's like almost a virtue play. Like, you know I should like this, so I'm gonna really try hard to like it. And to have a territorial style cheese that's like in your face and lovely and buttery and layered, it's just like that's what I want them to be.
Totally agree.
Brilliant.
I think this is like to me, just if like this is like a game changer almost. I think everyone I can bring in here and give them a taste of that, and everyone will be so excited by its smell, aroma. Yeah, anyway, sorry.
Oh, wow. Okay,
yes.
Text your score, guys.
Very even. I mean, for this style of cheese, I feel like it's slightly heavy, but I feel like I'm only going to ding it a little bit for that because it still has a crumbliness. It's not stodgy. It's not heavy. But maybe like an 8.5. I don't know.
Perfect. Yeah, cool. Yeah. And flavor, I just think it's just really complicated and layered, and it actually dovetail really well into that aroma that we're getting and that texture really, you know, even though that it's not quite where we want it, actually the flavor plays out really well into it as well. I'm kind of around a 9.
9.5. I mean,
yeah, 9.5. Yeah, I'm
loving your work, guys.
That's it. That's the first style of cheese that I think I've had that is like this. That for me, I just really just ignites kind of like the passion that I had for those cheeses so many years ago, and like you said, like really wanting them to work out for a country's kind of heritage and things like that. That will work out.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Beautiful.
Sum it up for me in 3 words.
Great British cheese. There you go.
That's the line I was going.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Our British heritage.
Yes, that's good.
Love it. Thank you. Okay, so the next one we're going on to is F2 1197.
119. Yep. Looks like another sort of cooked pressed.
Yep. Yeah, looks like another one like that. It looks very even on the outside, and on the really, really pleasant. Hard to kind of like judge it, obviously, in just like this slab in terms of like seeing that differential that might be going through the whole cheese. For some reason, doesn't kind of like really wow me appearance wise, and I need to just work out that a little bit more.
It feels a little crayony on the outside. Again, maybe what I'm feeling is that backpacking and the impact that that's having on the rind. I'm also a little puzzled by the fact there's no heel on it. Like, is this from a that's twice as big?
Yeah.
Or was this kind of yeah, I'm having trouble visualizing the whole cheese from this
Yeah.
picture.
Let's try not to let that affect us.
Okay.
Yeah. So like visually, like I said, it's very even. It's kind of, it does have devoid of character. I can't see any particularly crystalline that's in there. But there's nothing particularly wrong with it. It's good. 6.5, you know, for me.
Like translucent. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Aroma is kind of harder because once again, the vat pack has kind of got that kind of brine that's on there, but there is that over kind of, it's more meat kind of element that's in there, but there's a taint to it.
I'm getting a very kind of crayony lipolytic kind of heat smell from the rind specifically. And I think that, like with the first goat cheese that we tried, it's kind of knocking my impression of the aroma of the cheese as a whole. But yeah. I would ding it for that, even though I think the internal part of the cheese doesn't have that sickiness. So
yeah, it doesn't have it as high, but it's kind of like it's really difficult to judge that on. Like,
from an aroma perspective, maybe like a 6 again.
6 again, yeah.
Okay. Texture.
Sorry.
It's chewy, it's dense, it's meaty, it is broken down. It doesn't have curdy kind of, it's not springy. So I feel like the texture is delivering what I would expect from a nice cooked pressed cheese, very continuous, no holes. Like that looks quite textbook to me. I feel like the flavor is letting it down. I'm not quite sure where it's going. I want like way more layers and way more impact from the flavor.
Yeah, for that amount of work that goes into cooking, pressing, aging to get that kind of very clean texture on the flavor, it is just very it's
You're just looking for more layers.
Yeah,
more layers, more complexity, more intensity. Yeah, turn up that dial type of thing. So but there's nothing unpleasant about it apart from the kind of the briny solution that we're talking about with that packing that kind of happens. But when you get into the middle of it, that goes. So yeah, middle of the park, around about 5.
For your own flavor, yeah, I think so. And I would say texture is impressive, maybe 7.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, texture is impressive. Yeah.
Okay, what's next?
Next we have F2 1194.
1194. Yeah. It's got a line.
It's got a line.
Got a line.
Ooh.
Beautiful.
Does look gorgeous.
Nice flex in this one as well. Wiggle.
Yeah, beautiful peachy wash rind on the outside, really thin rind, which is kind of just well formed. The ash line in the middle is a little bit more kind of like uneven, I suppose. Yeah.
Rustic.
I don't know if I'm mad at that, to be fair. You know, I think society in Morbier has taught us that it should be precisely a straight line.
With a ruler, but no, we don't do things with rulers here.
No.
It's great British cheese, remember?
Yes. Yeah.
Appearance-wise, I'd put that pretty high. I think it's very attractive and nicely finished. So maybe like an 8.
Yeah. That texture is gorgeous as you kind of cut through the knife.
Got a real pull.
Cut through it with the knife, yeah. A really big kind of texture. It's very like heavy and kind of, it's got that chew that's in there, which is quite nice. It's kind of very, there's multiple things going on. It's quite complex in that nature.
I really do like the texture. I think it's got that combination of quite smooth and glossy with like a substance that means it's not gloopy, if that makes any sense. I feel like the texture for me is the highlight of this cheese. I feel like the flavor down slightly. It's just a little bit diffuse and just a little bit kind of, I don't want to say musky, or there's something like you could call it chocolatey, but there's just a kind of a sense of like it's a bit dull. I'm going to be.
There's that kind of, there's that kind of overarching milkiness that's in there, which is watering down kind of everything else, which is very much like when you go and make cheese with a cheesemaker and it just smells of that kind of lactic milk that's there. And then that rind is bringing in a little bit of kind of like mustiness.
Maybe it is the rind impacting the aroma and but yeah, it just, I want more either freshness, or I want it to lean into the savoriness or something, but maintain the lovely custardy, light, stretchy, giving texture.
Yeah.
So
so texture I really like. So I think we didn't judge texture. I think that's around about sort of an 8.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe even higher, 8.5.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 8.5. Yeah.
Aroma, I'm not super keen on. I just think it smells a little bit tired.
Yeah. Yeah. So 5.5, 6.
Yeah, let's go with 5.
Yeah.
On aroma. Yeah. And flavor, maybe a little nicer than the aroma. So what do you think? 7?
7. Let's go 7. Yeah. Yeah. Really interesting cheese though. Like, good to see that difference of style.
Technically, it feels very accomplished to me. Yeah. Very under control.
Guys, that's all I can say.
Lovely. All right. Next.
SQ1195.
Got holes.
Yeah. Looks really fresh. Rind is really, really bright.
Yes, quite
powdery.
Bit of that salami, white salami, penicillium. I don't know if that's Nalgiavensis or whatever they call it, but it has that special powdery penicillium.
Yeah, unfortunately, that rind is just very, very powerful. And
quite bitter. I haven't tried the rind part yet.
It's not like it's not like bitter or anything. It's just it's a lot.
It's like going to the zoo.
Yeah.
Where there's this sort of animal, slightly feral.
Yeah.
Quite ammoniac, but like.
I think naturally, because it's so powdered, that when you put it in your mouth, it kind of like, it kind of like, like chalk brushes kind of thing, like kind of inhaling. I'm not keen on that whatsoever. Like appearance, it's pleasant to look at, but unfortunately, that kind of exterior that it has, that is a defect to me, having that amount that's in there. And it's at every level, it's been a problem: aroma, texture, flavor. So a 4 for appearance for me.
Is that the actual appearance itself, or is that are you judging that on what?
I understand what Perry is saying in terms of that's a defect that runs through all parts of the cheese. And so like, appearance, like aspect, I don't know where else you would put that kind of like chalky, powdery rind. I agree. It's like, it's an attractive cheese, but the moment you pick it up, it's already telling you that it's like, there's something not so attractive about it.
The big thing that is going wrong with this cheese that they need to work on is that rind and that covering, and it needs to be shown within a category. And appearance would probably be the best one to put it in, but it is a problem all the way through texturally, aroma, and flavor.
it feels like it's got a nice finish. Otherwise, I know what you're saying. I might go 5 just because I think the like, shininess, the openness, the evenness, while taking entirely your point.
Yeah. Okay. 5's like, yeah.
Aroma. Again, I think the rind is actually quite ammoniated as well. It's interesting. Like there's a lot of ammonia going on, and I think the aroma of the cheese itself is not massively. It in fact, it smells a little bit like the last one, a little bit muddy, a little bit indistinct. I want more like freshness and dairiness and less sort of oldness smell about it, which is funny because it looks super fresh. So
Yeah.
I would give it a 4 on aroma.
4 on aroma, yeah. Texture is hard to differentiate. I think maybe this might be the highest area that it performs, but we're omitting the flavor element of that very clearly. And so I think maybe 5.5.
Give it a little higher. I like the kind of custardy chew and smoothness. I might go 6.5, if that's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
But then I agree with you that the flavor really gets let down by the rind, and it just, for me, it wants more projection, it wants more freshness, it wants to be a little bit more in your face. And then it wants the rind that isn't having that kind of very strange flavor.
Yeah. Yeah. So where would you like to go on flavor? Would you like to go 4 or
4?
4, yeah.
And what did we finally decide on for texture? Was it 7?
I thought it was 6, maybe.
Yeah.
That's why I'm asking these questions.
Yeah.
6.
Yeah, 6.
Yeah.
Cool. So just to recap, guys, you've got appearance a 5, aroma a 4, texture 6, a flavor 4.
Yeah.
Lovely. Next cheese is F21190.
Would your opinion, Bronwyn, be that cheese potentially could be sprayed?
Sprayed with that mold? Maybe. Like I tend to think of that as something that is on a salami, and it felt very evenly distributed over the surface of it. Possibly, if that's the case, I would say like that would be maybe some low-hanging fruit.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking. I think that is some real serious, consistent covering. And for it to have any kind of, I can't see anything else that's really going on it. So either the room's been sprayed or that cheese has been sprayed. I don't know, but immediately, like when you said slight, I was like, that's precisely what I think, that it may have been sprayed, or they kind of just need to beat back that mold somehow. Yeah.
Let the cheese shine through. This is interesting because it looks like the rind has been cut off it.
Yeah.
Or aged in some sort of plastic, but even then, even if it were, it looks like it's been trimmed quite aggressively. Because I would want that to be different if that was aged like in that form.
I think we just have to judge it on exactly what you've been given, because that's what they've given us. So
okay, it's I'd like a cheese with a rind. This is a farmhouse cheese. I want some kind of a rind or some sort of a coating that lets me know where the edge of the cheese is. So I think appearance wise, I'm gonna knock that for that. I think it's about like a 3 for me. I think
it would be unfair of us to, there is an element, and this may be crossing the borders, Cara, but there is an element of this that some of the defects may have been cut out, and it is a smaller piece of cheese. So either we're stating that, or that it hasn't got a rind, and it'd be nice to see a rind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying, guys.
Aroma-wise, there's a little bit of that lipolytic, peppery aroma. I imagine it's quite aged based on that. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, it's not my favorite aroma, but I know that some people add those lipase cultures to get exactly that. So it will be interesting to see if that fits into the overall aesthetic.
Yeah, it's interesting that it's got this kind of crumbly kind of bitty texture that as you break it, kind of like that, like hasn't formed together as well, which isn't pleasant too much on the palate, and the flavor doesn't quite deliver as well.
To me, that tastes very low salt. Like,
Yeah.
like definitely one to look at as a first priority. There's a hollowness to the flavor that I think is associated with that low salt. And it just tastes a tiny bit unclean.
Yeah. Yeah. So for appearance, I feel like, and please jump in, like a 3.
Yeah, I think that sounds good to me. Yeah.
Yeah. And in terms of the texture, I think maybe like a 4.5.
Yeah.
Aroma, I'm sitting round about a 4.5.
Might go 4.
Okay, yeah. And then flavor, I'm sitting around about 4.
Me too.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Excuse me. The next one we're going for is F21179, please.
Yeah.
You're looking intrigued, Perry.
Oh, I just was thinking about paper, actually.
This is very interesting. It's like a cellulose or something.
Yeah, I was just thinking about paper, and I was thinking, what does this do to the cheese? It's obviously, maybe it's permeable to a certain degree.
Like you can read it.
Yeah.
Looks like it's in nice shape. Like it's
Yeah.
quite glossy, not moldy, not molded up. Yeah. I'm interested in that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very young, it seems like. And there's kind of a little bit of kind of like cheesecloth that I have on there as well, which is interesting.
Like an imprint, or do you actually have some cloth on there?
I actually, yeah, like no, some cloth that was,
wow.
Yeah, that was in there.
Yeah, my brain is spinning. I'm not quite sure how to approach this.
Yeah, the color's nice as well. Like the color is like a nice kind of ivory in color for such a young cheese. I think that's really appealing, actually.
Yeah. It feels very primary, almost unripened, lactic, slightly yeasty, very demineralized. But again, I have to assume that that's kind of what they're going for, is some sort of hardish curd cheese.
It feels like not so much a cheese board cheese, but perhaps something that would be used in cooking or like salad or something like that.
Exactly what I was thinking. And it feels to me a little bit, I don't know if you're familiar with like Orkney style cheese.
Yeah. It's got that kind of like a rawness to it, like salt of the earth kind of vibe, which is quite pleasant to have in a fresh cheese.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think how I would use it, and I would never put that on a cheese board. But there's an interesting, I think your word raw is really perfect. It is unadulterated. It's like,
it would be a nice breakfast cheese, guys.
Yeah,
it feels like it feels like al feta. Like if we came up with like feta, or that was what we, it feels like that. It's kind of less in that lemony, like that's kind of devoid. There's like lactic element there, but there is that kind of rawness that's in there, which is really intriguing.
It's not super high acid, I guess.
No.
It's got that I think you're mentioning of feta made me think of that. It isn't like super lemony sharp. It's much more kind of milky.
It's kind of like the aftermath of when you have feta.
Yeah,
it's like feta back to front without the acid, I suppose.
Yeah, and it hasn't been brined and kind of like dry and flaky, but interesting and rich. I think you know, for if that's how we've defined it, I think appearance wise, super even, not wet, not like, you know, I would say probably pretty high. I don't know, what, 7?
At 7. Yeah, I like it. It's like I remember last year or the year before, we had some halloumi, and it's a really like nice surprise to have something that is kind of not atypical of like a like winning big flavor complex cheese.
Yeah.
This is a really nice surprise, and I hope like the cheesemaker finds chefs and things like that locally who could really bring it out, because I think it's got some really great elements to it.
I love how different it is than everything else we've tried. It's like thought-provoking. I feel like we paused over this and we've had a big discussion, and that alone is like a massive compliment.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say appearance 7.
Yeah,
Aroma?
7. Yeah. Aroma, I think it's really nice. I think that's, you know, I think maybe I'd be in like 6.5, 7 as well.
Just 6.5.
Yeah.
Texture, again, like in a different style of cheese, I might mark it down, but actually for what we've just described, I think it's probably correct. And I would give it another like 7.5.
Yeah, 7.5. And then maybe like flavor, like in a similar area on the 7.5.
Yeah.
Of where it is. Yeah, I kind of would love to see what chefs would do with this cheese. I could like imagine it with like just a lot of pairings.
Yeah.
You know, people could have like so much fun with this cheese, I think.
Honey, or, you know.
Honey, that's
fruit.
the first thing that I was thinking. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, super interesting.
So the sorry guys, the flavor was a 6.5.
No, was it 6.5 on where?
Did we say 7 on flavor?
I think 7 on flavor. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so the next one is F21180.
Although I do struggle with this packaging.
It's funny, it doesn't rip quite in the.
Yeah.
All right, interesting. Wow, look at that rind. I mean, it looks cloth bound, but then like it's kind of shrunken on itself and got a bit kind of keto-y almost. It's quite
Got like a little bit of mite in there, which seems like naturally controlled. We have a slight unevenness with kind of the maturity, but actually I've got half of the cheese. You know, so yeah, maybe yes, I have. So yeah, I love that rind. Like,
yeah, it's cool. It's
like a ruffled t-shirt kind of thing. I think that's so cool.
Totally. Yeah. I'd give it a pretty high appearance.
Yeah,
just like it's different. Like an 8.
An 8. Yeah, I'd love to see that cheese hole and see that pattern, you know, ripple just across. I do have some kind of bluing that's, I think, happened in my cheese.
Interesting. Mine is untouched. But it'd be interesting to see if that's nice, you know, sometimes. It's
aroma's really nice.
Quite vanilla-y.
Rind is funky, as anticipated.
Find it a bit low salt, bit kind of like I want that flavor to fill out a little bit more, and as it is, it just feels like it's stuck in a kind of high register, going a little bit sweet, and a little tiny bit like bitter is a strong word for it, but like a bit sour and angular.
Yeah, that's a tough cheese. And it's interesting because I kind of get excited where it starts. And then it's kind of like on a tightrope.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it begins to fall off and become unstable. And then that tightrope gets worse and worse as you go along. But I like the potential of it.
Yeah.
But the flavor, it really doesn't work out.
Yeah.
For me.
I completely agree with you. And I would say, yeah, I like the appearance. Texture wise, I don't mind it. It reminds me a little bit of the last one in terms of that flakiness, but in a more pure form. I think I would maybe give it a 6 on the texture. I
agree.
like it better as a super fresh cheese than where it's going as it's maturing, but it's good. And then aroma, like that kind of vanilla-y, quite like maybe one note. I'm not super wild about the aroma, but it's not like I would say aroma for me would be another 6, but
Yep.
it would be more like 4.
The flavor
It'd be more like 4,
yeah. I think I would maybe go like 3.5 on the flavor.
Okay. Should we do?
I just feel like it really comes off the rails pretty
Right.
hard.
Let's do 3.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah. Which is a shame because, like, again, I would love to taste that cheese in the fullest expression of itself when it's just right. I think it would be super fascinating.
Yeah, I think that's yeah, like one to watch. And yeah, kudos to kind of the rind. I think that's just so interesting to have those rolls and ripples there. And
still in good shape. All right,
yeah.
Cara, the final 2.
Okay, we have F2 1181.
Yeah.
Well, that's my last one, I think.
You have a 1166, sort of curvy.
Yeah,
Oh yes, I do. Yeah, yeah. Sorry, it went onto the other page.
Perry, don't give me a heart attack.
Yeah, I will in the future. That now you set a precedent there. I just turn up and say, I haven't got any cheese.
Ooh, interesting. So again, a very similar sort of very crumbly pale. Look at that rind though, it's like pink. Can you see that? Maybe not. Mine is
Yes.
like glowing pink.
In part, yeah.
It doesn't show up so well on the video, but it's like really peachy, blushy.
See
yeah.
that on mine a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Nice. I mean, a very smooth finish, cloth bound, but like super thin rind. Really kind of
Very even. That's surrounding it. More character. I think that's a really attractive cheese.
I agree. Got better salt than the previous one.
But still requires more.
Yeah, I
We're
agree.
judging it on its own merit.
I mean, it requires more for what, for this cheese, this is an undersalted cheese, but it's not seriously undersalted. It's just a kind of a bit low. I think the appearance is very nice. I would give it a high score on appearance. I might say like 7.
7. Yeah, I think that's really nice. I think that peachiness that's coming through is great. Even breakdown through the outside. I think, yeah, that's great. In terms of texture, there's nothing really going on which like really accelerates it to being amazing, I suppose.
In fact, yeah, no, I agree. And, I've been thinking more about this texture and like in the context of a ripened British territorial, I feel like this texture might reflect something that's a bit more industrial in its conceit, like a fast make, high starter, lemony, like crumbly, a bit rough, maybe a make that's covering over what the milk is doing rather than something in the context of it. If I were looking at it, that texture within a like super fresh cheese, it's a very different animal than when I'm seeing it here ripen, where I want more kind of savory projection and flavor coming out. And it feels like it's so locked in by that acidity. I'm just not getting very much. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very simple, and I find which way it would apply to chefs, to people. I don't see an avenue for it in terms of like that salt that we're talking about. It's very devoid of flavor. That acidity that comes in is very metallic and bitter in an odd way, and it just becomes really, really simple. Yeah. But the rind and that peachiness is really stunning. So like, well done for that. And obviously utilizing cloth, I think someone has.
Sure, perfect.
Yeah, and all these have been like Sorry, but they've been in the same packaging, but there've been a similar trend across these styles, which I think is really interesting, their work that they're doing with the rind. But I think the flaws in some of these cheeses, and this cheese, sorry, Cara, this cheese is at, like Bron was saying, at the make stage, which needs to be looked at. So yeah, in terms of texturally, I'm around about sort of like a 5. And then the aroma, it's pleasant, easygoing, middle of the road, milky, lactic 5.
Yeah.
And then flavor, I think maybe it's like a 4.5.
I was gonna say 4. So yeah.
4. Yeah.
Okey guys. Let me just recap that for you then. In appearance, we said 7. Aroma, we said 5. Texture, we said 5. And flavor, we said 4.
Yes, perfect. Let me just grab one of my Lottie Shaw's.
I was gonna say, you don't need to encourage me.
Yeah. Enjoy. So guys, believe it or not, we're on to our final cheese that you do have, Perry, which is F21166. And I'm just going to have my biscuit.
I do love those biscuits.
They're seriously very addictive, and I do want to eat them with blue cheese. I just think that's hyper palatable.
Brilliant. Thank you, guys. Oh, that one looks interesting.
It's been, it's made in a colander.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to cut the whole top off because I think that backpacking isn't really showing us the texture.
That's okay.
Yeah, cheeses that are this size are always intriguing to people in the counter. They always like kind of think, how is it done? When it's done obviously quite simply. But yeah, it's a really attractive looking cheese, and the milk looks quite rich and dark in color that we have. A little bit lighter actually now I've cut into it.
Can
the
one of
aroma
you
actually.
That's great. Now we can see it as well. That's brilliant.
Something I would say from a practical monger's perspective about this shape is that it rolls. And when you're trying to build a display and like work in a busy shop, and you cut a piece of this cheese and you put it back and then it rolls, you can get displays toppling all over the place. It's kind of a pain in the ass. I mean, if it's the best tool for the job and you want your cheese to be this shape, it's absolutely fine. But it's not perfect from that practical cutting perspective.
Yeah,
I don't know.
great feedback.
Yeah. Anyway, back to business.
Although,
all right,
it's going to provide a point of differential, and we have plenty of cylindrical style cheeses.
Yeah, we do.
And sometimes, well, I'm going to eat my words, aren't I? Sometimes, just a little bit of difference kind of pays off, and it's nice to have these different styles. But yes, quite like some of the cheeses we had before, considering the cutting method that a cheesemonger would have to go through, and also the scalability of if someone's having to cut, 5,000 pieces, they're not going to choose your cheese because of that, Yeah. I like the smell of it. It's very meaty, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very animal-y, actually. I was worried when I was looking at it, might be a little bit anodyne and like not much going on, but there's a real sort of funky, not quite barnyard, but just like there's something quite animal about it. Which
is it going back to the zoo again?
They might be a bit towards the zoo, yeah.
Okay.
For me.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a very raw kind of butcher stock stew and dumplings vibe to it.
Totally, a lot of kind of like iron, like blood, almost like a blood flavor, which
like kidney type, yeah. Which is very cool actually to have that amount of meatiness and that's in there. The salt is quite well balanced, which is good. The texture has a springiness and a chew to it, which I think adds to that more complexity that's in there. I think that's a really good cheese, actually.
I was prepared to be underwhelmed, but actually it's interesting. Yeah. Cool. So like Appearance? Yeah, I would say it's even. It looks good. I might knock it for the shape, but you know.
No knocking it for the shape.
No,
No
that's
knocking
not
it for the shape.
okay, fine. It's I don't know. What do you think? Appearance 7?
7.5. I think that's interesting. I think it's intriguing.
Okay, 7.5.
Yeah.
That's fine with me. And aroma?
Roma. I think the Roma's great, actually.
Yeah, I think I think it's very much in keeping with the flavor. That kind of awful, kind of quite meaty sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, like 7.5, 8.
Yeah, I think 7.5 actually. On second sort of smell of that, and obviously having the flavor that we kind of know is there as well. That interesting play on meat is quite interesting. So, but yeah, and then flavor. Yeah, I really liked it. I think like I'm weirdly like 8.2 on the flavor.
All right.
I'll bring it down to 8, and we'll call it a deal.
Yeah.
So
but yeah,
that
that's quite I do love that sort of play on meat. I think that's really interesting. I think I kind of move into that kind of always chicken, steak, beef, bovril, marmite, but to have that like offal kind of kidney vibe is really interesting.
Very different. Yeah. You're missing any, Cara?
I just want to recap and make sure I have it as you want it, guys. So I've got appearance 7.5, aroma 7.5, texture 8, and flavor 8.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Brilliant, guys. Well, thank you so much. I'm just going to go and have a look at the tally and remind you not to pull the winner out. But scoring very highly and winning is cheese number F21212. So you can look at that later. So we'd like to thank our sponsors, Butlers, for our beautiful aprons, which go on, Bronwyn, give us a twirl, stand up, give us a twirl, brilliant. Thank you. Yes, thank you again, Butlers, for supporting us. Thank you, Perry and Bronwyn, for just a fascinating few hours, even though I couldn't taste with you. The feedback has been brilliant, and that's part and parcel about what we try to do at the VCA is give cheesemakers that feedback that they don't normally get from a cheese judging. And, you know, your insight in how to improve stuff and the easy ways to tweak stuff has been really A1 and fantastic. I just want to remind you, because we need you and everybody else, that the final will be taking place on Wednesday, the 17th of May this year. Do get the date in your diaries. And we'll be judging the best of classes in the categories. So we've got 8 fantastic categories again. We'll also be having trophies: the best English, the best Welsh, the best Northern Irish, best Scottish cheeses. In addition, this year we have a Salsa Plus trophy for the highest scoring salsa cheese that's been entered. We have the, our trophies that celebrate the incredible people within the industry. So our cheese hero, our young cheesemaker, and our new cheesemaker, the sustainability trophy, and culminating at the end of the day with our supreme champions.